Wow, first sighting of a squirrel in the Tongyuk Park. We got a cool red one. Damn, not sure if you can see that properly. He's backlit. But this guy seems pretty healthy. Oh man, that's awesome. I love when they jump from branch to branch. A sight to behold. Never get sick of seeing that. Probably doesn't show up too well on camera because the sun or the bright sky is behind him. So all you're seeing is a silhouette. Let's see, I'll try to get behind, get a better view. Doesn't seem too bothered by human movement. Damn, that is a beautiful squirrel, mate. Possibly a female. Because the mature males, they've got these big ball sacks, gonads, that stick out like literally squirrel's balls. Finally spot a squirrel in the wild, or the semi-wild. We're at the park, the Tongyuk Park, the biggest park in Hanoi. It's just had a torrential downpour. There's less people around. But yeah, the Hanoians are very health conscious. Guys exercising over there. And you see some in shape 50-year-olds. This guy was doing the bloody flagpole yesterday. I think he was at least 54 or something, and he's doing the flagpole. Very tight abs. So yeah, it's good. People are health conscious even into the old age here. Unlike in Australia, mate, where, you know, around 60 years of age, you'll see the onset of a lot of debilitating age-related diseases. Alzheimer's, dementia. I'll probably get that early as well. I think it's a lot to do with the diet and also the society. When you're an old fart in Australia, you don't really get much social interaction. That's why so many have fallen victim to the pokies plague. I remember going to Crown Casino, you see these absolute hordes of pensioners pouring their fortnightly pension paychecks into those pokey machines. And I just always thought, man, if they had any better option, they would be doing it. But they don't. They don't have any better option. Because, you know, their kids see them as sacks of worthless protoplasm, to quote Ren, or Stimpy actually, and their grandkids probably don't see him as anything either. You know, in Australia, when you're old, you're basically worthless. It's a land of the young and beautiful. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to film out here because he was just, as you just heard, some guy randomly spit. A lot of the Westerners that come here, they say Vietnamese are very friendly, you know, they let you film anywhere, but try being a Vietnamese and doing it, or a Vietnamese that doesn't look rich and doing it. You know, a non-Viet Kiel looking Viet like me. I had plenty of people who shut me down, threaten me, swear at me just for filming, and I've never seen that on any of these white guys in Vietnam videos. They just walk around with these big contraptions and people just invite them to film. So when people say Vietnamese are very friendly, that's what they mean. They mean if you're a Westerner or if you have high social status or perceived high social status. But if you have the same or lower social status, they're not friendly at all. You know, like, look at the interactions I'll get walking around. No one gonna offer me free fruit or stuff like that. It's kind of naive, you know, like these. I remember he was filming in the countryside one time. He walked past with his entourage of white Westerners and a camera, and to mark himself as a non-local, and someone offered him free fruit from their tree. There was some bloody fish here. Yeah, and he said, oh, you know, that's just proof that Vietnamese people are the most friendly on earth. They'll just offer you free fruit and food and everything, you know, because they're quote unquote friendly. When just the merest application of basic logic would tell you that if she was doing that with every person, that tree would have no fruit on it. So there must be some selection. There must be some selective criteria on who she offers fruit to, you know. And I'm telling you that social status is a huge, huge thing here in Vietnam. Maybe the biggest thing. So, you know, for instance, think of it this way. Even if a rich millionaire guy, like, you know, really expensive car, you know, Mercedes, that may not be expensive where you're from, but here it's quite expensive. Only the top 0.1% of the population, I'm guessing, would be able to afford such an automobile. German automotive engineering at its finest. BMW as well. But a guy like that, just stopping by and giving a peasant like a pittance, you know, 10k or, you know, 100k, just say, would be deemed an honor, bigger honor than some bum looking dude like myself that looks like he doesn't have 2 rubles to rub together, giving them maybe 500k, you know, 5 times as much, maybe even 10 times as much. It wouldn't be like seen as much of an honor. It'd be seen even as an insult, because if I'm perceived to be lower on the totem pole and I'm helping them out, it's like an indictment on them. It's like, you must be lower than this guy for him to help you out. And that may be hard for the Western mind to wrap themselves around, because I noticed in the West, as long as it's money, people don't care, man. People don't care where it's from. I saw a video from a mob called Are You Kidding TV. He literally threw money on the ground and this girl picked it up, and they didn't see that as an insult. Whereas in Vietnam, if you were to throw money on the ground, I'm not sure how much the amount would have to be to override the humiliation that the recipient would feel. There's even a saying in Vietnam, I'll mess it up, I'm not good with the Vietnamese idioms, but it's something like của cho không bằng lòng cho, something like that. It means like the things that you give are not as important as the way that you give. People will say it's a thing about saving face, and face is a big thing in Asia. I don't really buy into that. In Asia, you know, usually the communities will live quite close together. People are all up in your business, so, you know, obviously reputation, which is what face means. Face is just another word for reputation. Reputation means a lot more here, because it's going to affect every aspect of your life. You can't just get away from the neighbors that easy, like in Vietnam. Whereas in Australia, there's more of a set of boundaries between you, your neighbors, your community. So reputation, you know, it's not that concrete. You can get away from it more. You can be like a degenerate and your neighbor's not going to know. You can be beating off to like some madcap porn or something, and, you know, doing some crazy substances in your house, and people aren't really going to know. Whereas in Vietnam, yeah, the rumor mill is pretty strong. They call it nhiều chuyện. Vietnamese are kind of known for that. Like it's said as a negative thing, but I think of it more as a positive thing, that everyone is in everyone's business. The downside of that is people are nosy, you don't have that much sense of privacy, etc. But the upside is huge, that you can't get away with crimes as easily. Big crimes like, you know, offing someone. The neighbor's gonna be noticing if someone is seen carrying a big human-sized garbage bag out at 3 a.m. in Vietnam. If someone shows up missing, that person's gonna be showing up on a lot of radars. Whereas in the West, because people have more boundaries, you know, people have their houses and they can lock people in their basements. You know, the big crimes you can get away with a lot easier. Even just kidnapping, stuff like that. You can force someone into your car, shove someone in your car in the boot and kidnap them pretty easy. Whereas in Vietnam, you know, you can't really throw someone on your bike without creating a pretty big scene. Now cars are more commonplace, but still, just have a look at the road. For every one car, there's like probably 1,000 bikes. 1,000 motorbikes and scooters, I mean. You know, see, two cars, and then you got this whole hornet's nest of Asians on bikes. What did that whole ramble mean? Probably just that it's more safe in Asia. That's a big thing. It's hard to say which countries are superior to other countries, what criteria I hold important is one, safety. Safety is like the foundation that everything else is built upon. So if you don't have safety, you pretty much don't have anything. So people can say like Australia or America is more civilized than Vietnam because, you know, technologically they're more advanced and using more electric cars, or they're building higher skyscrapers, or they're using more advanced technology in ticketing and in finding people and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's kind of really weird. They're still falling behind in the safety aspect. As I've said a couple of times, walking into a park in Australia after like 10 p.m, it's kind of shady. There's a lot of degenerates, a lot of perverts, a lot of, you know, you can't really call them out by name anymore, but you know the kind of people I mean, that hang around in parks, toilets in parks. And that would be not a daily occurrence in Australia for me, but at least every few months, you know, you'll be in the toilet and you'll see an eyeball like look through the little slits between the stalls. Or you know, in Australia, I remember there used to be a lot of, they call them glory holes. You used to drill holes in the toilets, the men's toilets, and then you'll see an eyeball there when you're taking a crap, you know, and it'll be some dodgy guy. Sometimes they won't have any shame, man. They'll just still be there when you come out to wash your hands. I mean, yes, there are perverts everywhere, but the perverts in Vietnam are kind of harmless. Like, they just kind of take a squeeze at your pecker, or, you know, touch it a bit. Whereas in the West, they're more likely to try to go that extra mile, you know, go that extra step. So it's a lot more damning consequences if you come across those kind of people. And yeah, just the big crimes like you know, moida and grape, they're more commonplace in Australia and in the West. And I've heard the argument that, oh, Vietnam's a communist society, so they hide all the real stats. But it's pretty hard to hide when there's Westerners and tourists and stuff coming here. If one of them gets offed, you can't really just sweep it under the carpet. And the other argument is, oh yeah, they don't really touch the foreigners, but they're offing the locals and, you know, graping the locals. But just personal observation would tend to lend no credit to that theory, because if that was the case, then girls wouldn't be walking around in mini skirts at 11:30 p.m. down dark alleyways in Vietnam. Like, people adapt to their environment. So if it was really that dangerous, you wouldn't see these schoolgirls just walking around at night unaccompanied. My time in India, didn't see a bloody female after dusk on the streets, and I barely saw a female at all alone, teenage to 30-year-old female that bared her face alone. So I didn't have to ask if it was a shady place to be a solo female. You just watch the other solo females that are all boarded up or else accompanied by male guardians. Another dude just hocking up his guts there. It's a passive way of showing displeasure at me filming. Anyway, I'll just end it here before someone hops up another lung.